Welcome to another Engineering Guild video. This one is about Necromancers found in the Cyrodiil Upgrade mods. Now, this videos show various mods that contain Necromancers. One of them is Kvatch Aftermath, another one is Kvatch Rising. You can't run both of them mods together, so it'll be a question of choosing which Necromancer features you want if you want to play them. The first video shows entirely Kvatch Aftermath Necromancer features, so you'll be able to see if you like that one more than the other one. The second one contains Kvatch Rising Necromancer features, contains the Necromancer and the Cyrodiil Upgrade Overhaul Necromancers. There are other Necromancers found elsewhere in my mods, but these are the main ones. Now, the whole point of Necromancy was to serve as a bad guy, well, serve a set of bad guys for the Mages Guild quest. Beyond that, they don't play any part in the game. They just live in caves and attack you when you go down.
Good to see.
They're not even very well laid out Necromancers, which is why the Cyrodiil Upgrade Cyrodiil Upgrade Overhaul attempted to create a definite faction out of them, and it completely re-equipped them, gave them Necromancer spells, Necromancer fighting habits, Necromancer weapons and armour. And it went overhaul, so when you go down in them caves, you actually encountered real Necromancers. That was the bad guy side of things. The good guy side of things never existed. I mean, the way the game was laid out, they were out there, but they were invisible. Completely invisible. Nobody ever did anything or conducted business. It says the Mages Guild is supposed to refuse to do business with anybody caught dealing with Necromancers. But where are they? Did you see any Necromancer that didn't come charging at you with a spell in their hand? No, there wasn't any. So I put some back. I've created a second friendly faction of Necromancers. These are the people that didn't join the Order of the Black Worm. Now I should explain that to you. The Order of the Black Worm is Mana Marco's faction. Mana Marco was Venus's deadly enemy, and Venus was the Archmage, well, the first Archmage of the Mages Guild. He founded the Mages Guild because he wanted to bring magic to the masses. He created the schools of magic. Necromancy has got nothing to do with the schools of magic. Schools of magic is a Mages Guild invention, and no Necromancer would be caught using it. So the idea of them using schools of magic spells or studying the schools of magic is a little bit far-fetched, and it's not very lawful either.
How are you? Unless
you get Mana Marco studying it too, in which case he'd be adopting the ways of his deadly enemy. So I don't think that would happen. So one of the things I've tried to do is separate Necromancy from the Mages Guild stuff to make it a distinctly different type of game. And one of the ways I did it was I thought, well, they'd really want to keep the bodies intact, so destruction magic could be out. They probably wouldn't want them chopped into pieces, so blades would be out. So that leaves other types of magic like summoning and blunts, because they can fix bone, but they can't necessarily, repair a body that's been hacked to bits. So it develops that way. Slowly I identified how these Necromancers would work, and I built up spells and weapons and preferred ways of living, says that made them feel different from the Mages Guild. And then I created it all in Kvatch Aftermath to make it feel better than it might otherwise do. So you've got a fairly convincing Necromancer lifestyle in Kvatch Aftermath, which laid the groundwork for other mods that I made later on, which also adopted the same sort of scene. So you're not playing an evil Mages Guild here, you're playing a real Necromancer game here. And if you wanted to play it properly, you really might want to read some of the stuff on the site, on the Engineering Guild site, about what to and what not to do as a Necromancer, because it does matter. If you're not using destruction magic and your only form of combat is magic, then you're going to have a difficult time, unless you master various things like summoning and other skills that Necromancers would have, in my opinion. And then suddenly the combat changes to something completely different. It's not about massive fireball spells anymore. It's not about sharp weapons. It's about letting your minions do the work for you. And suddenly everything makes sense after that in these Necromancer mods. It all works together and works quite well. Now, when you actually use Kvatch Aftermath Necromancer stuff, you've got my interpretation of Necromancers basically, without really consideration to the law side that much. I mean, there isn't any law breaches in it, it's just common sense, so it won't breach the law, it just doesn't support it very well. Says, for instance, the Necroversity. Brilliant idea. trouble is anything that big was bound to be spotted by the Mages Guild long ago. So there wouldn't be anything that big to do with Necromancers in Cyrodiil. It's a good idea, it works nicely, it's just not really practical, not in a law way. So if you like massive guilds, then Kvatch Aftermath would benefit you, because you've got Necromunda, which is a Necroversity, or turns into one eventually. But if you want more law-friendly stuff, you might want to go for Kvatch Rising, which contains small-scale secret guilds. It's a lot more friendly than the Kvatch Rising or the Kvatch Aftermath version, although the story's shorter. Now, one of the benefits of putting Necromancers back in the game is it spices up the game generally. You see them walking around the streets, for instance, and you can interact and talk to them. You can ask them why they left the Mages Guild and what they think of the Mages Guild. And you'll see two flavours of Necromancers: the evil, blood-sucking types that really are, Order of the Black Worm material, and they're just out to destroy the Mages Guild. And then you got the innocent ones, which were studying Necromancer as a form of healing. I don't know how many of you realise this, but modern medicine is actually a form of necromancy in the way it works. Sometimes, harvesting really body parts from the dead, chopping people up, transplanting things. It's all necromancy. So you've got to understand the difference between what Frankenstein did and what your doctor does.
You look like a bright one.
That's the two sides of necromancy. And I try to tell them two sides in these mods, so especially the necromancer, so you can actually see both sides of the fence. Because when you play in the Mages Guild, all you see is the evil mage side. Now, I don't know if you've read any of the Black Arts on Trials transcripts that you see in the game.
Good to see you.
But if you do, you'll get a kind of a blow-by-blow debate on the pros and cons of necromancy and why Traven banned it. In Chris, or Kvatch Rising, I actually go and redo that. It means you can actually have that debate yourself by talking to a pro-necromancer and an anti-necromancer and making a decision whether you want to ban necromancy again or just ignore its existence. You can't allow it into the Mages Guild because Venus would never have agreed with that. It was firmly against his policy.